Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or whenever you hear this. You can hear this anytime because it's pre-recorded, and that's where I get my shows. They could run about a week before they get all the numbers in there. A lot of people take, I guess, whenever at their convenience, they just watch the show, and when they have time to do that. And this is Dave Emmons, of course, and it's a strange reality show. And I have different guests every night, and usually I kind of put out my little, I don't know, feelers about how I feel for the day. Of course, the world is all messed up. It's all maybe my guest Kat that's coming up can get shine a little light on that through some of the things that she does. But I'll introduce you here in a minute. But I had we're talking about disclosure, and this is my opinion, and this is for entertainment purposes only. But people tell me, said, okay, I had a brother's picture of a UFO, and it went pretty good last week. He's got a lot of hits on it, a lot of different views, and people are telling me, well, turn it into MUFON. Well, it's my own personal preference that I don't go to MUFON because I tell you the truth, I haven't seen them do much help for me, and I've written a book on UFOs, and I've actually had a couple of incidents in the last couple of days, and they don't stop, and I even have them on film. But I guess I don't care. I'm too old to care anymore. So, but it's up, it's up to them. They want to take interest in my stories. I've been releasing some information to some of the people out there. I don't want to mention names, but like I said, it's my opinion and and it's for entertainment purposes. MUFON, for me, that people have been asking, well, send that picture to MUFON. I said, no, I won't, because I don't see any help there. I haven't seen any help from MUFON. I'm sorry. If everybody that hurts people's feelings, then that's fine. But the other thing I want to get at too is in disclosure. We all talk about disclosure, but you know what? We are part of disclosure, all of us. I mean, the people who have experienced things, who've seen things, they need to come forward and talk about it. We are our own worst enemies when it comes to that. People need to listen to people's stories and believe what's going on, and know that something is going on. It's happening to everybody. 50% of the people in this country or maybe the world have had contact with ETs, and a lot of times they don't know it. They might have it in dreams, and we'll be talking about that soon. I've got an expert on that, and a lovely lady, Kathleen, that I'll be introducing. But I just want to say that disclosure is not just up to the talking heads or MUFON groups or people like that. It's up to all of us. We, we the people, or we the experiencers, or we the contactees, to come out and come forth with our stories and say, hey, this is real. This was real for me. This is my experience. And I try to get new people on the show, tell their stories that first come out, but sometimes they get cold feet, usually by family or peer pressure. They're told not to come out with a story because people are still afraid of being criticized or whatever, not believed or disbelieved. And but for me, I don't care. I put the stories out there and they're true, and I'm not lying. And I swear upon God, and I believe in God. And I swear upon God, my stories are true. And I know that other people have heard their stories and I know they're true. And I want people out there. And just like I said, disclosure is up to us too, not just the groups or the talking heads or even the military. The military is even balking a little bit now. So let's take it upon ourselves to know this and get to know what we're doing ourselves and group together. And you can do that by putting your story out there to everybody. And I like to have newcomers to come on the show and do the story. But I don't have a newcomer here on Strange Reality. This lady has a real long, I mean, show record. It's Kathleen Cat O'Keefe-Kanavos, 3 times breast cancer survivor whose dreams diagnosed her illness and later validated by pathology reports, host of the Dreamy Writers Conference Cruise, Dreaming Healing podcast on DV7 Radio Network, is AKA Cat, the Queen of Dreams, a PR guru, internationally syndicated. Columnist, TV producer, host of Wicked Housewives on Cape Cod, author, lecturer, and internationally award-winning translated author of multiple books, including the groundbreaking research book Dreams That Can Save Your Life and Surviving Cancerland. As seen on Dr. Oz and The Doctors, Kat promotes patient advocacy and connecting with inner guidance for success in health, wealth, and relationships. And she's got a website. We'll give that to you later. And she's also she does her own shows, of course, and she's been on TV quite a bit, as you can hear. This is her book we're going to be talking about. This one right here, Dreams. Nice cover, nice book there, Kat. And it's Dreams that can save your life. And of course, it's helped save her life. She used her dreams, the lucid dreams, of course, we're talking about. And she's also with she does this other things with Dr. Larry Burke and Kathleen O'Keefe-Kanavos. She guest for her show, Kathleen O'Keefe-Kanavos, Dreams That Can Save Your Life, Early Warning Signs of Cancer and Other Diseases. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit, but she's got a lot here we're going to talk about. I know people are interested in dreams and interpreting dreams. That's what's important. And so, Kathleen, okay, let's go here. Let's start with this. You got so much information here for us to get out, but I'm going to say, Kathleen Kat O'Keefe-Kanavos, tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on with you now. Okay.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me on your show, Dave. I really appreciate being here. And I just want to reach out to everybody and say, if you're listening to this show, and when Dave was talking about how sometimes things happen and we are gifted in experience, and I called them all gifts. We're gifted in experience, but it might be something that is not socially acceptable yet. Dare to be a leader rather than to be a hider. And that's what I had to learn to do. I had to trust in that inner guidance that told me that I had breast cancer when the medical community kept missing it. And so by daring to go and demand a second set of tests that validated those lucid dreams with Franciscan monks, I'm not even Catholic. I put myself out in the front and said, go ahead, fire away at me, shoot your arrows, you do whatever you want. I have a higher power that has given me a purpose, and that purpose is to bring the message to you. So you can shoot at me all you want, but I'm not going away. And I remember my husband saying, because I went through 21 surgeries just in the first year, and it's because they kept missing it. It's one thing, Dave, to miss breast cancer with a mammogram one time. But when you've got the chiefs of everybody taking care of you at a top medical hospital in Boston, and they miss it the second time, and then they miss it the third time, there's something much bigger going on. And so I learned that we all have spirit guides, guardian angels. We're their job, and they take that job seriously. And some of those spirit guides and guardian angels can look like aliens. They can come into our dreams and they can speak to us almost as aliens. And if we think about it really hard, and we go back to a time where there are drawings on cave walls of people flying with wings and flying and hovering above people who are sleeping, maybe what we call angels are really aliens.
That's what I was going to say. I wrote a book on angels and supernatural entities, and I learned that angels, a lot of times they don't have wings, really. That's one of the things they talk about, even biblically. I've seen, read these stories of, Enoch and all the way up. But angels, extraterrestrials, spirits, ghosts, all these things can be mixed up, and they can be confusing. But your feelings with what your experiences have been and your healing experiences has been your guardian angels, right?
Yes, and they're interesting guardian angels because mine are actually monks. They're three Franciscan monks that walked into my dreams. They came, and I'll explain how this dream, it was a lucid dream, how it worked, Dave. I had my regular dream. I was in my dream, having a good time, whatever. All of a sudden, my dream froze, just like if our screen right here, our computer screen froze. And you know that little circle that spins in the center when the screen freezes?
Yes.
that circle opened up and became a window, and I saw stuff moving in there. And that window opened up even further and became a door to another realm. And through that door, while I'm standing there looking at it in my dream that has frozen everywhere else, walks a monk, a Franciscan monk with the brown robe on. He has his hood up. He has a rope belt. He has leather sandals on. And he walks up to me, Dave, and he says, "Come with me. We have something to tell you." And I'm looking around going, this is just weird. I know I'm in a dream. That told me right there it was a lucid dream. When you know you're dreaming, you're in a lucid dream.
And
I'm
you're,
looking around going, this
yeah,
is weird.
and you're able to communicate and actually look at these people and know what they're saying, either telepathically
Hear them.
or
Right.
yeah.
Right. They're speaking to me just like we're talking right now. And he turned around and walked through this door, and I followed him into the room between realms, is what I call it. It's a place, a special place of neither the living nor the dead, but where the living and the dead can meet and communicate. And he said, he took my hand and he placed it on my breast, and he said, "Do you feel that?" And I said, "Oh, yeah." And he said, "That's breast cancer." There were two more monks in that room with him at that point, standing looking at me. And he said, "Go back to your doctors tomorrow without an appointment and tell them you need a second set of tests." Then he walked me back to the door that leads into the room between realms, led me out. That door closed, became the window, shrunk down, and then boom, my dream started right up where it had stopped. And I woke up the next morning and said, that was not a normal dream. I went back to my doctors, and it took me 3 months, 3 different times, 3 different set of tests before finally, Dave, when the monk showed up in my dream, because they kept coming back saying, "Go back to your doctor, go back to your doctor," and taking me into the room between realms. When I saw him, I started crying. I started crying to the monk, and I said, "I know why you're here. My doctors aren't listening to me. I can't perform my own tests.
Mhm.
If they don't listen to me, there's nothing I can do. If I have cancer, I need you to do something to help me if you want me to live." And he reached into his sleeve, Dave, and he handed me this tiny little white feather. And he said, "If you use this feather like a sword, you're going to cut through the red tape and you're going to get the test you need. You go back tomorrow." So again, I take my husband by the hand, and he's going with me. We drive all the way back into Boston from Cape Cod. And I tell the doctor, "Look, I know something's wrong. I need," and the monk said, "Now you need exploratory surgery." And I'm going, "Oh yeah, that's going to go over really well. Let me tell you right now." So I go into my doctor's office and I said, "I need exploratory surgery." He looked at me, Dave, like I had just doused myself with petrol and set myself on fire. He goes, "We can't do that. That's against hospital policy. That's against my policy. I can't do that." And at that point, I imagined that little white feather and I pointed it at him in my mind. And I said, "You're my doctor. You need to help me." And David was like, you see the vampire movies? Supposedly we don't believe in them, but I wonder about that too,
Yeah.
where the vampire glamours somebody and says, "You want to go jump off the roof and land on your head." And the person goes, "Yes, yes, I want to go run up there. I'm going to go jump off the roof." And they do. My doctor left the room, came back and said, "I have an appointment 2 days after New Year's." I said, "Great." As it turned out, I was in stage 2, aggressive cancer with it in my lymph node.
Hmm.
Now, that tells me a couple of things that are really important for your audience. Number one, if you're not meant to die, nothing's going to kill you, including a deadly disease. Your spirit guides and guardian angels, whoever they are and whatever they look like, are going to show up and take care of you. And the second thing is, don't give up. Don't talk yourself out of believing what they're saying to you. Dare to stand in front of your doctor and say, "Hey, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving."
You
So I
know,
get that test.
Kat, what you've said, I'm very familiar with. I've actually seen two guardian angels in a white robe at my foot of the bed, 3 o'clock in the morning each time, but it was about
Mhm.
15 years apart. But I've gotten those little white feathers you're talking about. Real little.
Really?
Yeah, I got a couple in a box sitting right here on my desk.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah.
Maybe we're all connected by white feathers. I wonder how many people in your audience are.
Yeah.
Email us, let us know.
Yeah, I was at my brother's funeral in 2016, and I was sitting there in front of sitting there with his daughter, my niece, and I looked down, and there was a little white feather between my feet, and I know it was my brother sending me a message. I picked it up, and I just felt chills all over. You get that energy when you pick these
You
things up.
do.
They're called
It's a
apport.
message from beyond.
I got it and I give it to his daughter. I said, "Here, you're supposed to have this feather." So I give that
Oh,
one away, but I've got a couple of them, that I've gotten through my lifetime. And these are apports that I guess they're letting you know they're with you, they're following you.
yes.
And you're saying here dreams are sacred doorways to the inner guidance. Now, lucid dreams, I've heard, are very real. I've had scientists and doctors tell me that. A psychiatrist even told me on the air that lucid dreams are real. You're just
Oh,
reliving exactly what happened. And I said,
mhm.
thanks. Thanks for telling me that. That's a reassurance. And also when you do wake up from these dreams, Kat, you don't have to write them down. They're not like,
No, they're so real.
they're so real that they're burned in
Mhm.
your memory. And I even got a pencil. I started writing them down, and I said, I don't have to do this. And I threw it down because it was there, and it'll always be
Mhm.
there. And I remember them the same way every day. So I know what you're talking about. That you're hitting some nerves there with me too. But tell us a little bit about this inner guidance that you hear. Are these voices? Are they coming your dreams, or are there any other types of communications that you've had besides apports and lucid dreams from the other side of your spiritual guidance, Kat?
Yes, there's lucid dreams that we talked about, but then there's another type of dream called a precognitive dream, and you can have a lucid precognitive dream. And it's one of the seven types of dreams that's actually in my book that you held up. There's a chapter I wrote called Basic Dreams.
Mm.
So with a precognitive dream, Dave, that's a dream that comes true. You actually, and we talked about this a little bit before we came onto the show, where you are writing the time continuum, Einstein's time continuum. That's where you're going into the future and you're bringing back information because there is no past and there is no present in the dream realm. It's all the big now. It's just like heaven, all the big now. And so by being able to have a lucid dream where you know you're dreaming and watching yourself being taken into the future by your spirit guides and shown certain things. Look at this woman in the purple dress over there. See that stop sign right over there. Look at the little dog over there. Remember that. Remember that. And then you come back into your regular dream, you wake up, and a week later, you're walking down the street or you're driving your car, you see the woman with the purple dress. You see the stop sign, you see the dog, you get off the road because a truck comes barreling through with brakes that don't work, runs the stop sign, and fortunately just hits a tree and nobody else is hurt. But if you hadn't had that dream, you would have been dead. And that's why I say it's important to listen to your spirit guides and guardian angels, because it's not your time to die.
Yeah. Is that what they
You
also
have something
call,
to do.
they termed it deja vu? Sometimes when you see something familiar, I go through that myself. I
Mhm.
say, I've done this before. I've been here before.
It could have been a precognitive dream.
Yeah. Right.
Hmm.
That's, yeah.
Or a precognitive lifetime, because also in dreams, we can dream previous lifetimes. Because when we're in that dream realm, remember, there is only the big now, and that big now can include your past lives.
Mhm. We get into our own studies here and we talk about medicine. And a lot of people are saying that the medicine the doctors are giving us does not work. And there's a lot of ancient cultures, the Chinese, the Greeks. You mentioned here something about dreams do come true and their diagnostic and healing guidance can be validated by medical pathology reports. Of course, that's true. And then dreams are a spiritual source of healing. And also
Mhm.
you mentioned that the ancients ancient cultures as a means of healing. They went to dreams for their healing. Is that true, Kat?
Yes, that's very true. And I always tell people what I found really interesting, and it took me a while to pick up on it. My spirit guides didn't say, those monks did not say, go find Swami Wami Rama Lama Ding Dong, because I'd have done it. I would have gone looking for him. They said, go to your doctors, go back to your doctors. Because we're here on this earth plane as a learning experience, and sometimes the medical community can learn as much from us as we can learn from them. And when given a choice of medicine or spiritual healing, take both. There's no reason to pick one over the other.
Mm.
Take both. And that's what I did to heal.
Have you ever had marks on your body that you can't explain? Do they ever mark you or let you know by body marks, Kat?
No, no, I've never had any type of marks like that. I usually am never touched without permission, without my giving the permission. My spirit guides and guardian angels are always with me. I don't know why I'm so special, but they are. And if I get frightened and I call them, they will clean a room out
Mhm.
real fast.
That might be the difference between spiritual guides and ETs, because ETs will actually leave marks on you. And I've had marks on me that doctors can't explain, and implants. So those are different than
Mm.
what you're talking about. Uh,
Mhm.
you also talk about here the power of dream journaling, and I keep a
Mm.
journal or a ledger. And is that important, Kat, for people?
Oh, it is so important. Dream journaling is important for a number of reasons. First of all, if you're in a crisis of any kind, or if you're going through a teaching area in your life, or a learning area in your life, how are you going to know what you learned? Or how are you going to know what you've gone through? And whether or not you've come out the other side, if you have nothing to compare it to. And we can't remember everything. I mean, our chips are pretty big, but we can only hold so much. But when you journal, you have the ability at that point to go back and revisit what you wrote, to see how far you've come, to see how much farther maybe you need to go. And so I kept a journal that was not just a dream journal. It was actually a day journal as well, because I was going through chemotherapy, radiation therapy, and surgeries. And I remember thinking, I'm not getting any better. I'm not getting any better. I was so impatient because had never really been sick. And then I went back and started rereading my journals when I was re-diagnosed with recurrence, 9 by 11 centimeter. That's like terminal. And I thought, I'm going to need my journals to help me get through this second one. And when I started reading them, that's when all the lights started going on. So if your audience right now that's listening, if you don't have a dream journal or a journal and you'd like to get one, just go to my website when David gives it to you and hit the free gift button and type in Dave Emmons show. I'll tell my people who handle my website, and you can download a free dream journal with guidance on
Great.
how to use it.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'll have to make a note of that before, because when I get in my narrative, I want to make sure I get all that in there. You mentioned something about past loved ones that lived,
Mhm.
that died, and they come back. And I just told you about a story about 3 days ago. My infrared camera caught a face of a guy that I know that just died 5 or 6 weeks ago, good friend of mine, and his face was on that camera close to my computer because he was also into podcasting and stuff. But the face, I even sent it to his wife, and she said, yes, it looked like him when he was younger. He had darker hair
Mhm.
and a good hairline. And so those are people that do come back. And do they show themselves and talk to you?
Mhm.
Kat, have
They do.
you have past loved ones that come back to you, Kat, in your.
Absolutely. Before I even, my mother died 6 months before I was diagnosed with breast cancer. She died of colon cancer. So I had watched her die. That's a really horrible death. And so when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, it scared the hell out of me. Because I figured, if she couldn't survive it, what makes me think I can survive it? And it was also during the time that Linda McCartney had died of breast cancer. And I remember thinking, gosh, her husband has every doctor in the world in his pocket. He can afford to take her anywhere for treatment. If she can't survive, what makes me think I can survive? And I remember my mom came into my dream one morning just before I woke up. She reached down from above and reached down and grabbed my hands while I was asleep. And she said, "You are going to be just fine." And she disappeared. And it was actually before I had the dream with the monks.
Mhm.
So she came in knowing basically all hell was going to break loose now for the next year between the monks, the doctors, the dreams, my doctors thinking that I was crazy. So thinking that I was really having a breakdown because I was saying, no, no, I want to do this. I don't want to do that chemo. I need to do this chemo because my dreams were telling me which chemo to do.
Right.
And it turned out the one I chose was the right one.
Wow. And that was even giving the doctors the information and they followed it, right? That's really great. I know I've heard of people seeing my sister when she's having a triple bypass and she saw somebody come in her room at 3 o'clock in the morning. And angels don't have to have wings. We talked about that earlier. They can be in human form, they can be in ancestral form, and you might know them by looking at them, but a lot of times you don't. It's like be careful. I was talking to a guy who wrote some books, and he's a pastor, but he's got some really good books. He talks about be careful of the people you mistreat on the street. A homeless person could be an angel in disguise.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Mhm.
we
Could
have
be relative too.
yeah, yeah, and it's a test, for all that. But getting into ancient Greece and Egypt, they relied on dreaming as a diagnostic tool.
Hmm.
Now, could you tell us a story about that?
Sure, those were the Asclepian dream temples, and they, believe it or not, they still exist today, but they're spas. They turned them into spas because there was a tremendous healing energy in that area. So back in the time of ancient Egypt, which was also a time that white feathers were very important. If you look at the ancient Egyptian paintings and hieroglyphs, you'll see when someone dies. And you'll see the canopic jars that hold their organs on a scale. And on the other side of the scale is a simple little white feather.
Yeah,
And in order for Anubis to take you into the afterworld, your heart has to be lighter than a feather in truth, or you don't get to go into the afterworld. You go down basically into Hades. So the white feather's been around for a long time, but during the time of ancient Egypt and ancient Greece, when someone would have a problem, and quite often it was women who couldn't get pregnant,
right.
they would go to these Asclepian dream temples and they would sleep on the floor next to the priest and they would share dreams. These were priests who were dream experts. They would share a dream, and the next morning they would discuss the dream, and the priest, acting as a doctor, would tell them what they needed to do in order to become pregnant, or if maybe their business was failing. And so they would come into the Asclepian dream temples and they would again dream what they needed to do to either move or change something to be successful financially. And so these Asclepian dream temples were really phenomenal.
I saw a sci-fi movie that had that on there. I was digging around. I wanted to find this for you. This is the little feather. It's
Oh my goodness, yes,
real
that
tiny.
is tiny.
It is real tiny, and
It's tiny but powerful.
yeah, it's I've had three of those given to me as an apport.
Oh, there's that number three again.
Yeah, and of course I give one away, and I got one that actually took off on me. I don't know why it disappeared. I usually
They
keep
do that.
that's a little bitty people. I guess I have to blow that up on the screen, but that's what they look like. Is that what
Mhm.
yours look like? Something like that?
Yes. Like something, and mentioned it in my book, Surviving Cancerland, and in Dreams That Could Save Your Life. Looks like something that would come out of your pillow
Yeah,
at night and be on the floor next to the bed, just like that.
yeah,
But he handed me that.
yeah.
He said, use this like a sword.
I
And it
looked,
worked.
I looked around everywhere where a feather could be. There's not too many feather pillows anymore, and there's not too many. Even coats are filled with down, with a sometimes
Mhm.
with down, goose down, but not too much anymore. But I looked around everywhere when I found these feathers, and I tried to research just like I do everything that happens to me. I research just like the angels and everything that you're talking about.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
ancient Greek, I saw that movie in sci-fi, and they had the weigh scale, and it's and this movie was almost correct. Usually they don't make movies correct. They showed the ancient Egyptian gods, as they call them, gods plural. They were
Mhm.
big. They were huge. It's 15 feet tall, and that's
Mhm.
how big they were to the average person. Average person 5.5 feet tall back then. But that's what they were. They were gods that taught them these things and about the death trail or the walk that they take. But that's interesting. And but did these dreams are these dreams that the ancient Greeks and the Egyptians are these documented? A cat these stories about these dream diagnoses,
Are they documented in
like hieroglyphics, are in the Book of
Oh,
the Dead?
yes, 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 absolutely, they are. And the Asclepian dream temples, yeah, they actually existed, and they had an address for them. If you want to call it an address, everybody knew where they were. Yes, and yeah, they're still. I'm sure there are probably some Asclepian dream temples still that exist.
I think they can also put this information in your mind. Angels can actually download information to you,
Oh,
like in a
yes,
dream.
absolutely, they can.
And ETs do it too, but let's don't get them mixed up. Let's talk about what you're at here. But the confusion is to a lot of people, what are angels? What are ETs? What are ghosts? And could I ask you that question about ghosts and spirits? Are
Yeah,
they, are this,
yeah, ghosts and spirits, they don't scare me. Um, I've lived in a lot of homes. I'm an army brat. My dad was a Green Beret, and we lived in Germany when the wall went up in Berlin. I was in first grade, and the buildings that they built for us to live in were built very quickly. And they did not discriminate against their materials. I believe that there were probably bones and stuff
right?
in the mortar that was used to build these buildings very quickly. And our apartment was haunted as hell. I mean, it was the only time in my life where I slept with my mom almost every single night, because around midnight, the witching hour, I would hear army boots marching down the hallway. And I would smell cigarette smoke, and it would wake me up, and I would see this officer standing in my bedroom door, smoking a cigarette, looking at me. So what does that tell us right there, Dave? That tells me that it's not a rerun. It's what I call a rerun haunting, where there's a certain hour where something that happened is rerun. It reruns like a rerun on the TV, or it's not active.
Yeah,
It's just an active rerun. This tells me that this is an act of haunting, that those spirits are as alive to them as we are to us right now. And they were able to see me and interact with me.
right.
And that's a different type of haunting. That's where you can speak to the spirit, you can speak to the ghost, and they see you as being the invader in their home.
Mhm.
And so one of the things that I did at a very early age was learn to be very respectful of the ghosts, understanding that they lived there. I'm just passing through.
Mhm.
Many of them had been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. And if I was respectful and introduced myself, 9 times out of 10, they would tell me their name, and I could research it and find that they were true.
Like residual energy is what some of these ghosts are. But now, do you think a lot of people like that are contactees, and I know I want to differentiate. I want to separate the stories here, extraterrestrials, and what your account is. Your account is amazing, and it comes from a spiritual sense and an angel sense. And what what the differences are. Do you believe a lot of like these experiencers say, why me? Do you ask yourself, why are you being contacted by angels or spiritual guides so much, Kat?
I I I did that. I did. There's a story that again is part of a lucid dream. When I was when finally, the spirit guides had been coming back, the monks had been coming back saying it's back. Go back to your doctors. Breast cancer's back. You've got it again. And I had to fight for 3 months to get an MRI to prove that I had it. And I remember when the pathology report came back the second time, I thought, well, this is it. That sucker's 9 by 11 centimeters. I don't have a chance of surviving this type of recurrence. And I went upstairs because I was crying all day long when the pathology report came in, and I fell asleep on the bed because I cried myself to sleep. And in the dream, I woke up and my 3 monks were standing beside the bed. And I said, look, I know why you're here in the dream. I said, I know why you're here. I'm dying. I got it. I got it. All right, I got it. But I want you to warn God before I get up there. Because there is nothing I've done in this life or any previous life to deserve this once, let alone twice. So you might want to go up there and tell him that I'm going to have a really big bone to pick with him when I get up there. And they kind of laughed. And they said, Kat, don't you remember? And I said, remember what? They said, you told us before you were born that you wanted to come down onto the earth plane during a time when spirituality, God, angels were being pushed out of reality on earth and replaced with science. And people were worshiping science instead of God, instead of a higher power. And you were going to show that science only goes so far. And then comes God. And we told you we'd be with you every step of the way. And we have been. You're not going to die. And I looked at them and I said, what the hell was I smoking up there when I decided to do that? And they just laughed and they walked out of my dream.
Right.
And that's when I realized, Dave, my purpose. We're all here for a purpose. We didn't just happen. Even if our parents tell us we happened in the backseat of that old Ford, we happened on purpose.
Right.
We have a destiny. We have a reason for being here. And one of the hardest things is to figure it out and then stay on that path. But your spirit guides, guardian angels, and who knows, maybe even an ET could be part of what helps you stay on that path.
I think I've been helped health wise on a couple of different things, but I don't want to get into that. But now, when it comes to these monks, could you see colors? Did they wear the brown?
They were brown.
Yeah. And what's, getting into prayer, I know I prayed and prayed and prayed for my sister and my brother and my brother-in-law to be healed from cancer, but they never were. They were taken.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you can pray so much and you can go to church. What is your belief in how you mix? Do you mix prayer and religion along with these healings that you got from the supernatural entities?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. And you have to remember, we need to remember, we need to go back and remember how Jesus was part of the mystery schools. So spirituality and the psychic was a part of his everyday upbringing. It's only modern religions that have poo-pooed him. And I have been asked to leave many churches. I'm proud to say that. It's
Yeah,
okay.
that's
Once was because I was in a church that didn't believe in dancing or drinking at all, drinking wine or anything. And I said, why? And they said, well, it's, if you do that, you're going to go to hell. And I said, says who?
yeah,
And they said, well, Jesus, this. And I said, let me tell you something. Jesus was a party animal.
yeah,
When he ran out of wine, he turned the water into wine and he danced all night long. So whatever you're saying here is a man-made law, which is what religion is. It's not a spiritual law, which comes from God.
Yeah.
And they said, adios, you're out of here, goodbye. And I was like, that's fine. So we have to differentiate between spirituality and religion. And I'm not saying religion's bad at all. What I'm saying is if the rules of a religion, which normally are the rules of man made to control you in the name of God, don't fit with what you're believing in and don't fit with what your guides are asking you to do, stick with your guides, stick with your God.
What about praying for somebody else, Kat? Can you pray for somebody else, or does that have to come from the person from within? It sounds like the spiritual energy come from within you and then out to these lucid dreams, and then you got your cures through that. How about if you pray for somebody else, Kat? Does it do any good?
I believe it does. I believe in the power of prayer because I had so many people praying for me during that time. And their energy, they sent me their energy so that I had enough energy in my puny little human body to be able to overcome an illness that was killing me. But we also, it kind of goes back, Dave, to when the three monks came into the bedroom and I said, look, I know why you're here. I'm dying. And they said, well, no, actually, we're here to tell you that, you decided to do this before you were born. We all have an expiration date on this somewhere, but only God can read it.
Mhm.
But that doesn't mean that the power of prayer from somebody else can't make that transition a whole lot easier. And when it's your time to die, I remember my dad telling me, when it's your time to die, nothing is going to save you. And until it's your time to die, nothing is going to kill you. But through that power of prayer, you bring in the energy, and that energy can help someone cross over so much easier. And it calls in their family, it calls in everyone. Nobody ever dies alone. Nobody ever dies alone. And so the power of prayer can give them energy when their body is so weakened by something to get them over that threshold. But if it's their time to go, if they decided that before they were born, and this was their time, then no, your prayer's not going to keep them alive, but it may save them from suffering.
Yeah, I I agree with that wholeheartedly. I know I prayed, but I've had people tell me that prayer works better when you have a DNA connection with that person, and because you can communicate through DNA
Mhm.
frequencies to that
Mhm.
person. But the person that is dying, and like you said, if it's their time to die, it's their time to die.
It
I
is.
also accept that, and I know that sometimes when I see people when they get into the last throes of their illness or whatever, and they're about ready to go, have a sense of feeling, just like my friend who passed away here lately. I just had that feeling that, okay, this is all downhill now, so, but I'm
Mhm.
still going to pray and I'm going to still try to keep his spirit up. And so, yeah, and religion never has worked out for me too much. It's like a club anymore. I wish it could be that.
Which country club do you belong to? I know. And some people, they love that setting of like-minded people and following rules and regulations. Not everybody is like us, Dave, who are independent thinkers and individuals who are quite happy walking along our own path. A lot of people aren't there, and I respect that. If you're listening and you're one of those people, kudos to you. I sometimes I wish I could belong to a club like that and be happier, but I'm an independent person. And so I do tend to seek other independent people and not really confine myself. But yeah,
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with belonging to a religion and really believing in that religion if it makes you happy. And that's the whole thing.
bingo, you hit the secret word there. If it makes somebody happy, do it. I have nothing against people's
Mm-mm,
religion or their freedom to have their
mm-mm.
religion. I fought for that. I'm a veteran, combat veteran who fought
Mhm.
for those freedoms. Our freedoms are dwindling now, but and that's just for entertainment purposes only by saying that, but they are, and I fought for it, and it's sad to see that a lot of these and even the religious freedoms are disappearing, and the
They
church
are.
has disappeared by 40%.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
people are looking for something higher than a church. I know my last bad experience in a church a couple of years ago. I was in a men's group and they asked me what I did. And I said, well, I'm a writer. They said, what do you write about? Oh, so my first book was about UFOs and my experiences. The four of them standing there looking at me, they turned their heads and stared me right in the face. And one guy said, we don't go there. And then they walked away from me. And I thought, my goodness, you know, I, I'm okay with your religion and how you do your process in church. I says, just understand what I'm looking at is research. I'm researching things. That's what I'm doing. So yeah, that's something else, but it's got to come from both sides. And the religious
Mhm.
people have to be, I guess, patient with the other people that are not religious, but they're spiritual. And some people
Mhm.
spiritual, that's not very good. Oh, yeah, it is. That's because it's coming from you. And I think that's what cured you, Kat, was your spiritual energy. You wrote this book, and one of the questions here you had is how is your book similar and different to other dream books on the market? Kat, could you tell us the differences?
Yes, it's what made our book groundbreaking, and that's Dr. Larry Burke. And he was chief of radiology at Duke University Medical. And this was right after I had written Surviving Cancerland, which was a book that no publisher would publish. They were like, who cares if you survived cancer using dreams? So what? Blah, 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 blah. Right. And so I hybrid published it, and it has since been picked up by Blackstone Publishing. So don't worry if nobody wants to publish your work. Somebody will eventually, you just go on your own little path and let them catch up to you. So my book was it had won 4 awards immediately. As soon as it was published, it won 4 huge international awards. So it was all over the internet. And Dr. Larry Burke at that time was doing radiation therapy on women who had breast cancer. And when he would give them the questionnaire, one of the questions he asked them was, how was your cancer found? Did you find it? Was it found in an MRI, mammogram? What? And they would put my dreams. Well, he had 18 women in a month that put in their dreams
Yeah.
on his questionnaire. And he says, there's something here. So he went to before the board at Duke University Medical and said, I'd like to do research on this. This is groundbreaking research right here. He says, I want to find women. I want to interview women who had dreams that diagnosed their breast cancer, and then they went to their medical doctor and had pathology reports confirm the dream. Because usually pathology reports will tell them they're sick and then they start having dreams. This is the complete opposite, and we don't have any research about this. I'd like to do this. So Duke University Medical said, okay, if you can get 20 women, we'll fund you. And so he had 19. He was on the internet trying to find 20, and boom, I showed up in his research. So he called me and I said, sure, I'll be your number 20. And long story short, after he was published in all the medical journals and everything, he said, okay, great, that's it. I'm done. I got published. And I said, now what are we going to do with all the information? And he said, well, I'm done. And I said, what about all the other women out there in the world who have dreams that they have breast cancer and their doctors tell them they're nuts, go home, come back in 6 months, and then they die? And he said, well, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to write a book. I want to take all your research. I want to mix it in with my stuff. And we're going to write a book and we're going to get it published. And he said, no publishing company is going to publish it. I said, trust in the process. So long story short, I found an agent. My agent then took the book proposal, scattered it out to 5 different publishing houses. We went into a bidding war, and our book was on the shelves 8 months later.
Mm, that's you're you're a phenomenal. I mean, you have a great topic, and a lot of people would be interested in it, especially women who have to go through this. And there's a lot of them out there. You know that probably more than I do.
Oh gosh, yes.
And to teach people to get into their dreams. How do you teach? Like let's say if a woman comes up to you, and I know this has probably happened many times, and they
Mhm.
said, Kat, I have breast cancer. Could you tell me how I can connect with my spiritual guides? How would you start with them, Kat?
I would say, well, congratulations. I'm so happy we met. We're all born with spirit guides, guardian angels, and we're their job and take that job so seriously. And when we start listening to them, we go into our quiet self and we listen to them, we will hear them and they will show up in our dreams. So if we keep a dream journal and we write down what happens during the dreams when we meet our spirit guides, we start seeing them. They start introducing themselves as a spirit guide. They give us their names. When we start following their directions, Dave, it's sort of like when our parents, when we're, those teenagers, when we're those crazy teenagers who think we know everything, we don't listen to anything anymore. And they say, look, if you drive the car in the dark with the lights out, you're going to probably hit something. But we continue to do it anyhow. We drive, we forget to turn the lights on, we hit stuff. Then finally, our parents stop telling us that. We keep making the same mistakes over and over again. Finally, we figure it out. We turn the lights on. We start driving the car. And then we start realizing, gosh, our parents aren't that bad. They really do know stuff. They're not just a pain in the neck. That's how our spirit guides are. As soon as we start listening to them, we accept the fact that they're guiding us. They're keeping us from crashing into the tree. Then they start giving us more guidance because they realize we've got it. And then you're working with a team and you're working with an incredible team that can go up against anyone and anything. You've got heaven behind you. You've got an army.
Right. I I just have to stop here for a moment. I have to give you kudos to this book that went internationally famous, and this doctor who got on board with you, and your other four books. You got five books total. Now, do they all have this teachings of the spiritual guides also, Kat? Your other books?
I only write about spiritual guidance and teachings and all of the stories and like some of the other books, like my favorite one, I got to share my favorite, we wrote this during COVID,
Mhm.
Crappy to Happy. It's
Oh,
called Crappy to Happy. You can see all of these books on my website. They're all right there. And every single one of them will have a story that's going to touch somebody's heart. And one of the most important things about the stories we're talking about, Dave, the stories you're talking about and I'm talking about is not necessarily just the crises, but the coming through the storm and coming out the other end. That's what people want to know. They're still stuck in the storm going, okay, so, now what? Now what do I do? How do I get out of this hurricane? And that's what all the stories in every single book that's in every single one of my books does. It shows you how to come out of the storm,
mhm.
how to get back out into the light. And I think that that's one of the most important things about any story. If you look at even Hansel and Gretel didn't end up falling into the oven and getting cooked. That'd be a crappy ending for that story.
Yeah,
Hansel and Gretel
right.
get, they are their father comes and saves them. And so that's what my books do. But they're all true stories. So they tell you how to get to that point where you're saved.
Well, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people who pay attention to your website now, but I was also going to say that in an artwork, I had an artist tell me if you're going to draw something or take a picture of something, make sure it's got a road or a stream that goes up it that leads to that mountain or to that area that you want to take a picture of. And then secondly, with the books that you're talking about, in usually novels or whatever you write, not the type of books you're writing, but these are novels and things, and it's got to have a story from rags to riches.
Mm-hmm.
And then in your books, it's gotta be, you have to overcome, really bad obstacles in your life, and then succeed at the end, and be a survivor. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what your books are about. And that's what a lot of people are interested in. How can I help, myself live as long as I can? And I don't want to, it's you have to kind of, most people don't even pay attention to their health, and that's sad. You run into that, right, Kat? Some people don't pay
Well,
attention.
yeah, I mean, I don't think yeah, it's careful. You have to focus on what you want, not what you're afraid you might get.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I don't focus on my health now. I mean, I eat healthy and everything, but that's part of the hero's journey, which is what my books are all about. And maybe that part of that hero's journey is relearning what to eat. I remember my spirit guides coming into my dreams and telling me I had to eat dandelions. And I said, what? And they said, dandelions. And I said, are you talking about those weeds in the yard?
Yeah.
And they're like, yes. So I went out, I looked at the dandelions. I'm like, I think I'm going to throw up. And I went and I researched it. And dandelions are one of the best foods in the world you can eat.
Mhm.
So I learned how to cook them. I'd boil them. I'd take the water, make tea, and my husband and I drink dandelion tea and we eat dandelions.
Yeah, as long as you don't spray any weed killer on them, they're okay.
No, I get
Yeah.
organic ones.
Yeah,
Yeah,
organic. That'd be great. Let's
yeah.
get to this. Let's get back on track on your book, and I want to follow your guidelines here because I've been getting you off on the wrong tracks. Uh, what
We can
are
wander around a lot.
yeah, but what are because I got questions, I guess myself. I want
Yeah,
clarifying, and I know
great.
sometimes the same questions I have, other people might have too. So
Mhm.
I kind of
Yes.
take that in consideration, and I have to shut my big mouth sometimes. But what or who is the dreaming E patient, and why are they important in this book? I know we've been covering some of that. You call it E patient. What's that all
Mhm.
about, Kat?
Oh, that's a great question, Dave. I forgot all about that. The dreaming e-patient. Yeah, it's a doctor's nightmare. The dreaming e-patient is like the doctor's nightmare. And so many of us, like what I did, the spirit guides came in and said, eat dandelions. And I'm like, what? And so I went online and researched dandelions and learned all this stuff. Well, there are a lot of the patients in my book, Dreams That Can Save Your Life, that would have a dream about their healing, not just their illness. Okay, they've already had the dream about that they had cancer, and then they went and the pathology reports, said, yes, you do. They validated it, but then they continued to dream their healing. They would have dreams to do this, to do that, whatever. And they would go online, they would look it all up, they would take that information into their doctor and say, look, I researched all this and I want to do this, 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 and this. And the doctors were like, we don't do that. And at this point, those dreaming e-patients who'd already been through all that garbage with the medical community said, so start, you know, we are people. We have the internet and we're going to research our symptoms and we're going to research our stuff. And we're the ones that had dreams that diagnosed our illness. So let's work together. Because like I said earlier, when given a choice between just medical and just dreams, use both.
Mhm.
Take both. When given a choice, take both.
And Kat, you've had such fascinating story. I'm going to read this. Well, you might have covered some of this, but as one of the women in Dr. Larry Burke's research group, you wrote about your guided dreams with Franciscan monks as spirit guides, guardian angels, and also talked about them on the Dr. Oz show, The Sixth Sense, and Shocking Premonitions, and George Norrie's Coast to Coast show. I told you guys she is all over the place. She's been there and done that, and she's got a great story to spread. I mean, it's going to be helpful to a lot of people. And so she says something about please share your dream from the book with us. Uh, I want to go back about the monks. Why do you think it's the Franciscan monks for you, Kat? What?
I don't know, Dave.
Yeah.
I
what?
still don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's, I jokingly, I said one time, your spirit guides are sort of like kittens. They choose you.
Yeah.
I don't know. Um, Franciscan monks, I mean, they're very serious. I almost never laugh. And I never see their face because their hoods are up, but they're always there for me. And they protect me. They're so protective. I'm not Catholic. I'm an Episcopalian. We don't have monks. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, a lot of monks aren't Catholic, though. They're not. They're kind of a different type. I don't know all the names of them, but they do call them, like, you got Franciscan monks. That could be Catholic monks. And here's a
Mhm.
story, I guess, right under that line that you wrote. The year 1998, and I am in Boston, Massachusetts. My gynecologist and general practitioner, Dr. Dennis Wagner, who resembles the late actor Gary Cooper, a guided dream from a previous night involving a Franciscan monk, has sent me to his office and for examination. That's where I asked you the Franciscan monk thing. This is the first of many medical visits, and you've already explained that. So I really, how many times did these Franciscan monks visit you in your lucid dreams, Kat, before you started getting cured?
Oh, well, they visited me 3 times before the doctor finally performed the exploratory surgery. They kept coming back into my dreams and saying, no, 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 you don't take no from him. You don't come back in 6 months. You go back tomorrow and you don't take no for an answer. So, yeah. So, and then once I started my treatments, there were a number of people who showed up. My Franciscan monks would show up at times and talk to me in my dreams. My mom would show up. One time, Dave, my mom showed up while I was going through treatment, and I had no idea who she was.
Mm.
She was walking beside me. It was night. And usually, if you have a dream about dreaming, if you dream about it being nighttime, it's a very strong precognitive dream and a strong lucid dream. And she was walking beside me, talking with me. And I noticed the woman walking beside me had these peep toe shoes on, like 1920s type of clothing. And I'm thinking to myself in the dream, who is this woman? And why is she walking beside? Why is she talking to me like she knows me? And then she gets out in front of me and she goes up a flight of stairs and opens a door that has nothing behind it but sky or whatever. And there was a tree there, and she pointed to the tree and she said, this pear tree connects us. Anytime you need me, focus on the pear tree. And I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, bye. And then it was probably 3 years later, 4 years later, that someone, when I was in some class on dreams, someone said, if you have a pear tree in your dream, the pear tree is the mother, because pears are the womb. And so if you have a dream with a pear tree in it, it means you're dreaming of a mother. And suddenly it occurred to me, my mother was walking beside me, but she was her younger 20-year-old self. She'd gone back to her prime.
Mhm.
And she was so young, Dave, I didn't even recognize her.
Yeah. A lot of people do when they pass away. They go back to when they think that their physical appearance was much better than what it was when they died. Of course, when
Mhm.
somebody dies in agony, they're not going to be as attractive as they used to be, and it's sad. I've seen my relatives do that. Uh, you're saying here, and while enjoying your dream, it suddenly stops like a frozen computer screen or a TV show put on pause. In the center of my dream, a pop-up window appears, much like on a computer. The window expands into a door, and a spirit guide, guardian angel, dressed as a Franciscan monk, is for your spirit guide, in a long brown hooded robe with knotted robe belt. Now, I've seen a white robe person visit me a couple of times, and the leather sandals, steps through the sacred dream door. So you're stepping through a portal or a door type of thing. I call it portal. There's my ET stuff coming out.
Mhm.
And his hood covers his face, and they say, come with me, and then you go with them. And that's your dream process. Is that right, Kat?
Right, that's what I was talking about earlier, where I stepped into the room between realms.
Mhm.
That's the area where the dead and the living come together and they converse.
Right. And that's it's kind of, I guess, if everybody wants to take that kind of journey, it takes a lot of, I guess, spiritual preparation for yourself. What did you do? And this is something that people are going to ask. How did you get to the point that you had help from these Franciscan monks? I know you said you laid in your sofa and you cried because you knew or you figured it was all over with for you, but you got kind of angry about it. What do you think you did that caught their attention? I think a lot of people would like to know that little tidbit and what you felt when it happened. I always hear the stories. God will come and lift you up when you're down at your lowest point, and it
Mhm.
sounded like you were there. And
Mm.
could you tell others that could be going through this how you?
Sure, that's a great question, Dave. It's not that I did anything. It's that I was open to receiving. I didn't do anything. I I I know that there are people who, and I talk about this in my first book, Surviving Cancerland. I went to a psychic school with my husband, and in order for a lot of the students to reach that level where you go through the sacred doorway with your spirit guides, they went through a huge process, a really huge, and I so respected that. They were so determined to do this. But for me, it wasn't the physical preparation. It was the emotional preparation, the acceptance. Um, Build that place within yourself and they will come.
Yeah, that's and yeah, I know that feeling. I've been down before. I've been in combat, and of course you'll pray a lot, and I think I've been saved quite a few times. Maybe it wasn't my
Mhm.
time to die, like we talked
Mhm.
earlier. And this dream journaling, I wanted to get back to that. I know you talked about it, you having a dream ledger. Do these entities, like the Franciscan monks for you and spiritual guides, do they know you're keeping this journal? And is that why they take?
I'm sure. I think they're there. I think they're with us all day long, all the time. They're always around. You can call on them if you need them. I swear mine pick straws every morning. Whoever gets the shortest one has me for the day. Um, and so I think they're always there. And you just have to develop a rapport with them.
Mhm.
They're your friends. They're a part of your family. You knew them before you were born. They're a part of your extended family. And so it's very confusing down here on the earth plane because once we're born, we go through the great forgetting. And it's important that we do that, Dave, because if we didn't forget where we came from and what it was like, we'd all be jumping off of bridges to get back. So we have to forget where we came from.
Really? So the past lives is not good to remember. Is that what you're saying? I guess, Kat.
No, coming down from heaven or wherever it is that we come down to onto the earth plane, being here on earth is very difficult.
Yes.
It's very
It's a
difficult.
big
And
test.
so we have to forget where we came from before we get here again, or we'll just want to go right back.
Yeah. So I I guess that what we're looking at is a lot of when you die, and I always keep thinking that's that song, James Bond, you only live twice, and that's true. The song is true. You do live twice because when you pass on, you go to another dimension. Where do you say where we go, Kat?
It's interesting that you should ask that because my brother just died.
Yeah.
And he caught COVID in the hospital and he died from COVID. And he was a vet. He was a veteran also. And I was devastated because I didn't get to see him for like 5 years. I didn't see him when he died. And I was saddened about that, but I understood his wife didn't want anybody around him because she was afraid he was going to catch COVID and die. And then he got sick and he went to the hospital and he caught COVID and he died. And so his family didn't really get to visit him. And I remember falling asleep one night, and in my lucid dream, it was like yesterday, I walk into a restaurant. I walk into a really high-end restaurant, dark wood, plush floors, and I walk up to the maitre d', and he's standing at a desk on a high desk, and he says, oh, yes, he goes, just a second. And there's a big window in front of me, but the curtains are drawn. And I can hear voices behind the curtains. And two gentlemen, two waiters come to me on the left side, and they walk me to a door on the right, which is the future if you're doing a dream. And I go down a flight of steps. They walk me down the carpeting, and the room, Dave, is full of tables where families are eating dinner together. They're all having big dinners together at these tables. And they turn to the right, and the one waiter pulls out the chair, and I sit down, and he scoots me up and he goes, there you go. And I'm like, where am I? And I look down, my mother is in the middle of the table, and my brother is sitting right beside her, and he looks shell-shocked. So that wasn't necessarily a really good dream. He looked utterly shell-shocked. I don't think he really believed he was going to die. And the table is full of family members. Oh, excuse me. We're getting ready for a hurricane, and it's starting to get really thick here. He's sitting at the table looking just straight ahead, and then the dream ended. So we go back. When we die, we go back and reconnect with our family. And I remember about a week later, I had a similar dream, and I'm standing in a room, and I look over and I see my mom, and Tommy is there, and he's tall, and he looks over her head, and he's already turning younger. He looks over his head and he goes, hey, sis, which is what he always called me. And then the dream ended. So I knew finally he was all right. The first time I saw him, he was shell-shocked. He was still adjusting, but my mom had a hold of him, and he was back with the rest of our family. And the second time he had adjusted, he was happy. He was going younger, and I didn't need to worry about him anymore. And I haven't seen him since.
So we do join our family after
Absolutely.
after this physical death, and we join with our family. I've heard people say that they see a lot of people and that they know and families that they love. Is there a bad side to going across, like somebody lived a really bad life? Is there a heaven and hell from your perspective, Kat?
Um, I've often asked myself that same question, Dave, and I don't know. What I do is I believe that there are opposites to everything. There's life and there's death. There's up and there's down. There's in and there's out. There's two sides to every coin.
Right.
And I know that heaven is beautiful. I've seen glimpses of it. I've been gifted with glimpses of it. It's incredible. Imagine being in a place where everybody is in their prime and they all like you. It's like one big party.
Right.
And so I have to believe that there is a hell for people. And I look at it this way also. If you believe in some parts of the Bible, even if you don't believe the Bible is the word of God and you have to believe every word and all this, if nothing else, the Bible is an incredible history book, if you want to look at it that way.
Yes.
A lot of people say, well, the Bible's useless. No, it's an incredible history book. And if you look at the fact that Lucifer is kicked out of heaven, he falls from heaven, you have to believe that when he fell from heaven, he didn't fall alone. And if we're being reincarnated from heaven back down onto the earth to do work, I have to believe that hell is where he went, and he's reincarnated back up along with his followers to do things that are not in the best interest of mankind.
Like
They're in
what?
the best interest of an angel that was so self-centered that he couldn't think about anything but himself.
It's like what's going on now. There's a fight between good and evil, I think.
Yeah,
Just
I agree.
uh, I wanted to ask you about Dr. Oz. Now, was there a question or two that you remember that he asked you, Kat? Could you kind of repeat what he might? Because I watched Dr. Oz. I know he's a pretty smart guy. He can probably come up with better questions than I can. Do you remember any
Well,
questions?
there were a couple of things that he did. I remember when I was scheduled for the Dr. Oz show, I was really only supposed to be on for one segment, the
Mhm.
first segment. And so when I came out, he's a lovely man. He is a lovely man, and he makes you feel so comfortable and so at home on the set that within a few minutes, it's like the audience kind of pumped me up. The audience made me feel so good
Yeah.
on the show because let's face it, you don't want to go around telling people that, oh yeah, you see angels and you see monks and they talk to you. That can be a negative thing to some people, but one of the first things that he did, I saw papers in his hands, and I thought, well, that's odd. That's interesting. He's got his notes. He waved the papers in the air and he said, these are her medical notes. Everything that she said in her book is true. He said, I've had the different people in my show. I don't know what you call them, runners or producers, make sure that what she said is true. So it was vetted. So that shocked me. That was a gotcha moment. I had no idea he did that. But I remember he asked me the same question you did. Why monks?
Hmm.
And I said, why not? It's got to be something. And I remember saying to him, would you ever argue with a monk? And he said no. So maybe because I'm so strong-headed and I'm so, self-confident, it was going to take something like a monk to get me to listen. Whatever it takes, that's what you're going to get. It
Yeah.
could have been a cat talking to me on a chair. I would have, would I have listened? Would I have gone back to my doctors and said, I'm not leaving until you give me those tests? Probably not. But a monk, yeah.
I might have a monk too because I've had it visited twice in 71 and 98. So different times. So that could
Mhm.
be a monk that I'm
It
dreaming
could
of.
be, and
Yeah.
like you said, monks come in different sizes, forms, and different clothing. But I remember when the segment was done, I was getting ready to get up and leave because then you would have the next guests on, and he grabbed my hand and he took me to the next set, and he said, "No, you're staying with me," and
Oh,
he kept me the whole hour I was on his show.
wow.
And he was asking questions, and he brought in some other people, and we shared together. It was a great segment, and they held it over because it was so good, and they played it right after Oprah Winfrey.
Yeah. And it's because I can tell deep inside you're a very honest person and everything that's coming from you is exuding the truth. And I can feel that
Thank
in what
you.
you've been through and all the things that you've been through. Uh, why do people, I know I've heard my name called too. Do you get
Mhm.
the people hear their names called? And how about messing with electronics like TVs and radios?
Oh, they're great at messing with electronics. And I think you said your friend that died showed up on the computer.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
mess with a lot of electronics. And when I'm doing my show, Dreaming Healing on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network out of Rhode Island, it's not unusual for my phone to turn itself on and start answering some of the questions breastfeeding, and the lights will start flickering, and because they get really excited,
Yeah.
they love being a part of our life and they want to show us they're real.
Yeah. Well, my TV changes channels at 7:20. We listen to sleepy time music, I call it. And
Mhm.
it changes from 7:20 from a real nice music channel and it changes back to news. Like it's trying to tell me something that something's going to happen at 7:20 in the morning and I'm supposed to listen to the news. I hope not, with everything going on today, we never know, it's a challenge, but I've heard my name called, and I've asked my wife, "Did you call for me?" She goes, "No, I'm busy. Don't bother me." They'll
I
get you
call
in trouble
that's
sometimes.
actually in my book. It's called the cocktail effect.
Yeah.
Um, and it's where you hear your name called,
Hmm.
and it's across time and space, and it's to get your attention.
And how about the knocks, like on a door, like three big knocks or something like
Hmm.
same thing?
Yeah, they'll knock on stuff. They'll they want you to know that they're there.
Hmm.
And they know you can't see them even though they can see you. And
Oh,
so,
I got an infrared camera that I can catch them. I,
oh,
I
all
catch
right.
I catch energy orbs and
Yeah.
things of that nature. Yeah.
Orbs, yeah. It's but just just say, hey, I know you're there. Great. I'm glad you're here. And you know, here's another thing that people don't really talk about, Dave, but you can get spirits that are living in your house that have been there way longer than you. They can be angry that you're there and they can actually do mean things.
Mm.
And I will tell them off. I will tell them off.
Mhm.
I will say, excuse me, you don't throw spaghetti across the room. Were you raised in a barn? Do you have no manners? You know, we can share this space. There's plenty of space for us, but I'm not going to put up with that kind of behavior at all. You do that again, I'm calling my monks. It stops.
There you go. Monks will beat them up. Uh,
Yeah.
and then you talk about re-entering your dream to retrieve information. I've been
Mhm.
trying to do that without any success. Why is this important? And can anyone re-enter their dreams? Do you have to meditate deeply, Kat, to do?
No, 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 no. Sometimes, you know, we're so busy, Dave. Our lives are so busy that sometimes we're having a great dream with lots of information, and then the alarm clock goes off. And it's a beep, beep, beep. You just, you know, wide awake. Oh my gosh, is that my alarm or is that a fire alarm? And you lost the dream.
Yeah.
But there was some really important information that you were getting in that dream. If you lie back down in the bed in the same position you were in, and close your eyes, same position, and close your eyes. Sometimes you can slide right back into it and pick it up and then bring yourself out slowly enough to be able to hold on to that dream and write it down and collect that information.
Now,
Because our morning dreams are the easiest ones to remember.
yeah. What about 3 a.m., the bewitching hour? They always call it. I've had a lot of things happen at 3 a.m. Like
Mhm.
that one monk in the white robe. I guess it's a monk or an angel. I saw it twice, and it was at 3 o'clock, between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock in the morning.
Mhm.
Is that a bewitching time that you're sleeping
The
between
witching
three?
hour is at midnight. The witching hour is at midnight, and that's when, you know, spirits and stuff like that will come in. But 3 o'clock in the morning is the hour of souls.
Okay.
My mother died at 3 in the morning. That's the time of the day that most people die, is 3 in the morning. And so that is when the portal really opens, and you have people coming and going at that time at 3 in the morning. So it's not unusual to have a lot of activity at 3 in the morning.
Mhm. What about, I know a lot of people that die, they'll be laying there in bed and there'll be loved ones around them. They'll say, "Do you see Uncle Sam over there or Uncle, Gerald over there?" And you'll look
Mhm.
around and say, "No, he's standing right there." Do the,
Mhm.
do I guess people that are dying in their last minutes or last hour or whatever, they see things, they see people.
Mhm.
Is,
Yes, as I said earlier, none of us die, we don't die alone anymore. I look at it this way: when we are dying, we're being reborn on the other side. We didn't come into this earth alone. Our mother was there. Somebody might have helped with the birth. We had family. It's the same thing on the other side. And when we're at that place just between those two, when we're almost going into that room between realms
Mhm.
and we're getting ready to cross over, we can see both sides. We can see both realms.
I've
And
been
they're waiting.
I've been dimensional. I've been across dimensional barriers and abductions and things of that nature. I'm not sure that they're all abductions. It could have been a lucid dream, like you're saying, your spiritual guide taking you somewhere. But
Mhm.
I've had all these things, and when people ask me, said, Dave, is there a life after death? I said, yes, there is. I've been able to kind of peek across in the dimensional, travels, and
Mhm.
I saw that, and I said, yes, there is for sure. I've even had a guy ask me in combat. He said, "Would you pray for me? Do you believe in God?" I said, "Yeah, I sure do." And I said, "Yes, I'll pray for you, but you got to get up and start shooting." So I was his sergeant, so I had, but I
Yeah.
was nice about it. But no, but that's true. You have to take the steps in your spirituality goals. You just can't. You can dream them, but dreams are kind of like an outline, I guess, Kat, you would call it. It
Mhm.
tells you,
It's a first step,
yeah,
but you got to keep going.
yeah, and
Don't stop.
it tells you the direction you need to go. And you said about premonitions. We didn't talk about that too much. They can tell you what's going to happen in the future. Is that true, Kat?
Yeah, but when you come to that fork in the road, we all come to forks in the road. Sometimes we take the wrong fork. It takes us longer to get back to our original path that we needed to be on. And so sometimes our spirit guides, because they are on that time continuum constantly of the now, they can see that we're going to hit that fork in the road. And so they can come into our dreams and say, do you see this? I remember one dream that I had in, was it Dreams That Could Save? No, it's in Surviving Cancerland. In this dream, I walked in through a door and I was in a medical office. And I saw a lot of people in that office that I'd often seen in my dreams. We have a lot more to us than id, ego, and superego. We have a lot of people within us. And to the left, a woman in a white doctor's coat walks out and says, "Hi, I'm your physician within. I'm Dr. Jules."
Mm.
And I'm looking at her going, okay. And all of a sudden she says to me, "Look." And I looked down and there were crabs on the floor. And they started running for another door that was open that would lead to the basement. And she said, "You catch those." So I go screaming after these crabs, and they're scurrying down a flight of stairs into the dark hallways. And I'm going, oh my gosh, I'm not going to be able to catch them. And they're going to disappear down there and they're going to multiply. And there's going to be crabs everywhere. And I suddenly screamed, "Stop." And they stopped. And I reached down to pick them up, and there was a plastic container in my hand. And I scooped the crabs up in the plastic container filled with water. And they pulled in their claws and they turned into three beautiful pearls.
Wow.
And I looked at them and I said, "Pearls, crabs, I got it." Okay, I had the breast cancer and it was in a lymph node. That was a second one. But where's the third cancer? Where's the third crab? 5 years later, I found the third cancer. And I had to keep going back to the doctors and saying, "You've got to do this. You've got to do this." And so sometimes we have dreams 5 years in advance to prepare us for the fact that we're going to have to be really strong this time to make yourself be able to live. And our spirit guides give us that precognitive dream, which three breast cancers, three crabs turned into three pearls of wisdom.
Mhm. I have dreams that are kind of aggravating. Of course, I'm a combat veteran. They kind of it's like I'm in class all the time, and I don't make the grade, or I failed the test or whatever. And it's always the same thing. I wake up and say, "Stop it, stop it." I'm done with school. I'm too old for that stuff. But no, I do have those dreams. And last question here. What if someone can't remember their dreams or think they do not dream? Everybody dreams, right, Kat?
Everybody dreams. We all dream. And you said something very interesting there. You didn't make the grade. Look at the play on words there. You felt you weren't making the grade. Play on words is so important in dreams. So yes, we all dream. And in my book, I actually have I use the words "so dream" in order to help you do that. So S stands for set your intention. Before you go to sleep, I'm going to dream. O, organize yourself. Have your dream journal beside your bed with a pen and your whatever flashlight or whatever you need to be able to see. Have everything right there within arm's reach because if you have to get up and hunt for it, you're going to lose the dream.
Right.
And then D, demand that you dream. Tell yourself, I'm demanding right now that I'm going to dream. Then R is remember to repeat the dream when you wake up. Just repeat one thing in it. It doesn't matter what it is, just one little thing, repeat it. You've got it. You're holding on to it. E, emotion. Write down in your journal the emotion you feel when you first wake up because it's attached to the dream. If you don't remember anything else, your emotion is important. And then A, add to it. Add to it. What? Okay, I woke up and I was really sad. Okay, who were you with? I don't know. Where were you? I was outside. What was going on? Start adding to it. And then M, go back and underline those words in the dream that are important to you. Figure out their meaning to you. If there was a snake in the dream and you're afraid of snakes, you're going to put meaning, fearful, but somebody else might see the snake and underline it, and it means the Kundalini. There's a message. So that's how you figure out your dream language. When you start talking to you through your dreams, your spirit guides can now speak to you through your dreams, and you have your own language.
Well,
And that's how you remember your dream.
my spirit guides are probably a little miffed at me because I have these these recurring dreams about being in a classroom, and I've got 5 years of college, and I think that's probably what messed my head up. So it has me back in the classroom. You like you wanted to go further in school and you didn't, and you're regretting it, and something just keeps kicking you in the butt for it. So I don't want to have that dream again. I lay down and said, forget that dream. I don't want to go back. But I think
That's a recurrent dream.
yeah,
That's a very important dream.
yeah. So what does it mean when you go to these different classrooms, you're sitting there and you can't make out, some of it could be ET, the symbols and the words, and you can't make them out. And you're saying, I failed this test, What does that mean, Kat?
Well, it definitely, there's a message there. And when we have a recurrent dream or a recurrent nightmare like this, it means that there is an important message in it and we're just not getting it. And so our inner self keeps putting us in the same position. It's often like where you have that recurrent dream that you go back to your high school and you can't remember where your locker is. You know you have a test, but you can't find the book. All of this stuff going on. Sometimes that recurrent dream where you are in a learning position or a learning situation and you can't seem to be successful, it can be one of two things. Number one, there's a message there that you're not getting and you got to figure it out. You've got to figure it out. You got to get with your spirit guides and say, I'm not getting this. Give it to me in another way. And that's called a clarifying dream. You ask for another dream to explain the previous one you had, and they'll do it. The next one is, it could be what's going on in your life that you just keep feeling like you are repeating it, like Groundhog Day over and over again, and you're just not getting anywhere. And that may be what that dream is saying. I don't understand the symbols. I don't understand the language. I don't understand what they're saying. And so you have to look at your life in your waking world to
Right.
figure out what your dream world is trying to tell you.
I played music for 42 years, and I think I would have liked to have been a successful songwriter or, musician, but we never broke that barrier. So maybe that's part of some of that success and failure. Uh, but no, it's been a very interesting show, and you've been around quite a bit of places, and I will put your website in there and they can look everything up about you. In closing, what do you want to tell people today for this time being that's going on right now, Kat?
Trust in your dreams. You're going to get guidance in your dreams. I actually had guidance in my dream for one of the elections, and it came true. Trust in your guides. Trust in your dreams. Everybody dreams. It's a gift. It's a gift we were born with. Embrace your gift.
Right. Okay, and we're going to be closing. I'm going to show this again with the book. I should have had this in my files, but I think I do, but there you go. That'd be good. They can see that. But uh, Kathleen O'Keefe-Kanavos, thank you for being on the show. And I will put your website and narrative, and I'll let you know when I put that out and to the public. And I'm sure they're going to enjoy the show. They're going to enjoy you. You were great, fantastic, and I appreciate you being on the show, Kathleen O'Keefe-Kanavos. Thank you so much. And you've been listening to the Dave Emmons Strange Reality Show. And good night, or goodbye, or good afternoon, good morning, whatever it takes. Bye bye. Thank you.